We are recording. I think that's me. Hey, this is John Troyer. It is Friday, September 1st. I'm here with a group of friends, people who were at VMworld 2017 in Las Vegas, and we're here to talk about the conference. This is, I don't know, I'm going to put this on marketing. This might be a thing, but maybe not. It's so welcome. Let's just get going. Hey, the first time you talk, introduce yourself. How about that? And we'll talk for about an hour. So we pulled this together. I had this idea yesterday, and I thought we'd talk about it. Let's open 2017 VMware Las Vegas. What y'all think? What about the feeling, the overall feeling? I thought it was a better show and a more energetic show than last year. We have a big panel. We have no protocol, so jump in, somebody. What do you think about the overall show?
I loved it. I thought it was really great of course, I get on my community soapbox, but the fact that the V Brown Bag stage was on the schedule builder was just phenomenal. Because it gave a voice to a lot of people who were doing really, really great stuff on that stage. And it was live streamed, recorded great, but really you want people there and you want people talking about it. And I just thought it was phenomenal that their section was just packed. And it brought a lot of people into VM Village and the VMT and community section. So I thought that was just absolutely phenomenal. So intro, as you said, Yadin Porter de Leon at Porter de Leon on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. But just wanted to start out with that. So kudos to VMware for that.
Well, and CXI from the internet here, I've never seen more engagement, feedback, interaction, all that jazz from people talking about their sessions on Twitter than anything before. I mean, normally it's just like me bitching about stuff or sharing information, occasionally retweeting random vendors and what they have to say. But I've seen so much more from just regular attendees who set up a Twitter account so they can promote the session they're attending. These are just random run-of-the-mill, like normal attendees. And that's the level of engagement was significant compared to years past. Because normally, like literally, you can tell it's just me because I can see myself constantly showing up within the hashtag VMware feed. So it was actually pretty amazing.
Christopher, you're saying in 2017, engagement of regular attendees was higher on Twitter?
Absolutely.
Wow. I did not see that, but that's awesome. That's counterintuitive.
Well, can I chime in on that really quick? Yeah, because I was looking. If you look at the big board in VMT, the VM Village, I saw you last year, 2016, and I saw Justin Warren up there a ton, and a bunch of other people I recognized. This time, every time I looked up there, seeing the tweets that were coming through, I didn't know any of them. It was great. It was just like a ton of extra people. So just piling on.
Wow. What about show economy? The show floor was huge. This year it was much bigger, so something's going on with the economy. The booths were big.
Okay. Seriously, what's up with the color coding of the show floor based upon the company's color branding? I mean, it's really easy to find a company if they have the same type of name or if they're the same color. Infinio and Infina, they're right next to each other. Oh, there's three companies that are green. Let's put the green companies.
Yeah, I went to the wrong booth a couple times because I'm like, oh, there's my no. I'm in the green section. Where's my booth? Oh, there it is. There.
And I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just circumstantial, but it looked kind of weird and it was interesting.
Yeah, it did seem like the show floor was totally random to me. Like walking around, I didn't know where I was supposed to go, or like why is this company next to that company and that kind of thing. And by the way, I'm Stephen Foskett, and I'm not on my bed. I'm sorry.
You didn't see the memo?
Yeah, I didn't see the memo, guys. Sorry.
Stephen, you're just in from your red eye. You look great. So, Stephen, what do you think? I thought the energy. So last year, I mean, there was some micro stuff, right? Last year, vSphere 6.5 was not out. This AWS thing, which we'll talk about in a sec. Let's get to some of that. But I don't know, Stephen, I mean, overall energy, you were doing the hallway conference, but it seemed good. And the attendance is flat down maybe, but it seemed good.
Yeah, it seemed pretty good. I want to, back to the first question, like what's your overall thing? I want to call attention to what Justin Warren said. I really love this. He said, VMware has finally stopped apologizing for existing and is acknowledging that cloud is something customers want to use. And I totally agree. I mean, it seemed like instead of trying to say, just VMware all the things, it seemed like a much more, a much more collaborative and realistic message.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
This is Kenneth Hoy. Yeah, I had a sense that the messaging this year was a little more cohesive. I think in the past, at the last couple of years, I felt like they just kind of VMware threw out a lot of products. We kind of try to see what's stuck. And this year, I think, especially in the day 2 session keynote, that they actually had a story they're trying to tell of where the various technologies kind of fit in. And I think that helps people get a better sense that VMware actually knows what they're doing in this kind of new growing as things are changing in the space.
Super intriguing. I want to talk about the VMware platform in a sec later, but bringing up so what Stephen said, the media literacy little lesson, right? Somebody right even before we hit record, Christopher I think said, "Hey, the Forbes said that VMware got its mojo back," and that article got spread everywhere. VMware, like I sat down on a plane, an engineer beside me, she said, "Yeah, the people have been saying VMware's getting its mojo back." So Forbes did not say VMware got its mojo back. Justin Warren, an independent analyst and friend of ours, an acquaintance of ours from Australia, said that VMware got its mojo back. I happen to think he was right. It was a really good article, but it's really interesting that he's a Forbes contributor, which is kind of like a paid blogger, but there's no editors, there's no like editorial agenda or anything. It's what Justin wanted to write. So it was a very positive article. So VMware jumped all over it. They did it internally, externally. Forbes says VMware got its mojo back. Again, media literacy. I happen to agree with the opinion, but it was just the opinion of one guy, Justin. I don't know. Anybody else on the Justin article?
Well, I want to add just slightly on that. The VMware got its mojo back, but and specifically not the mojo, but your mention of media literacy.
Yeah.
This has been, I'd have to say, the most amazing event for squelching the media aspect of anyone who is not absolutely pressed. It's like you've got a camera, you've got a microphone, you're not allowed to be doing any recording on the show floor. And it was a great way to say, hey, you community bloggers. And blogger, I fought hard to get actually to say blogger on the badge, and they couldn't figure out how that worked out at all. Thus, they're basically saying, go suck off, all you people. Go to the distance and what have you, unless you have press on your badge.
Christopher, you got shut down?
I watched other people around me get shut down. While I was walking around recording day 0, walking around with the camera, I wasn't shut down, but I wasn't going to let anyone shut me down anyway. But I did see other people get shut down, and they were very strict about their formal signs up that saying, no video or audio recording from outside press. There's a little sign that had that stuff up.
In which sec? We'll talk about that later. That's kind of interesting. And not good, but it may, there are sections where, I saw people recording, but we may have been in different places. Hey, anything else on the mojo question or media or Justin?
Hey, so I actually want to ask a question of everyone. John, you said, and actually this is Calvin Zito, HPE. I am not Jay Metz, although I am trying to look like him with my cheap hat.
Oh, I thought that was Jay.
I was actually going to say I'm not Jay Metz when I introduced myself, but I didn't. So everybody, we were talking about how big the show floor was, and I'm not sure I got that same sense, and maybe it's my recollection, but it seemed like it was actually a little bit smaller to me. And one thing I intended to do, and I didn't, is, probably like 3 years ago, I remember walking around the show floor and counting how many storage startups there were when VMworld was really a storage event. And there were like 37 or 39 storage vendors. I forgot to do it this time, but just in my general walking around, it seemed like it was way less, and that may be more of an indication that storage is consolidating. But I don't know. I wonder what people thought.
I don't know. Did TGIL get bought by Western Digital a couple days ago? I'm not sure what impact that has as well.
I heard a nasty rumor the cost was 0, but I don't know if that's actually true. I think they just took their debt on, but.
I would. So this is Brian Knudtson. I coincidentally also work for HPE, which is somewhat going to be part of my point. Is there was 2 other vendors that definitely weren't independent of HPE's booth from last year. But one interesting trend I did know is there was a lot of vendors that had multiple booths. You looked at Rubrik had the little basketball court thing. You had Dell EMC had several spots on the floor. I guess we could read things into that if we wanted to. Was it Cohesity? I think had a couple of booths as well. That seems
that's a little perplexing, isn't it? Like the show floor was really confusing. Like, why were there multiple booths, and why was this one over here and that one over there?
I can talk about that from at least HPE standpoint, because we actually had multiple booths for many years, and this was the first time we didn't. And the reason we didn't was cost, because they were trying to save money. So we always had a second booth that had a singular focus, like, Flash or software defined or hyper-converged. And this was the first time we didn't have two booths.
Mm-hmm. They will definitely cut you deals if you buy more. That may be part of it. I mean, you did see that a lot of the space was taken up by Dell Technologies, and with really big kind of whereas last year, 2016, they had roped off with black curtain and pipe and drape a lot of a weird cutout on the show floor in the same space. Here, that was instead that space may have been filled up by that giant Dell camping doohickey and like that.
Yeah, what was up with that? That was kind of weird. It was like Columbia Sports Equipment did a 3D body scan of me, and they couldn't explain why they did that. I was like, why are you guys doing this? I mean, it's cool. Thank you. I love it. But why are you doing this? And they were like, it's a thing, And
Did they scan your badge? Did they scan your badge? They did it to get a lead for someone.
Nobody scans my badge. I am a badge karate chopper.
They wanted to clone you, Stephen. That was their whole thing.
That's it.
I wish I would have known about that. That sounds like that could have been cool. But wait, when was this? I'd say earlier this year was the year of the fidget spinner. Everybody's got fidget spinners to go around their booths. This year was the year of the Amazon Echo Dot. Everyone giving dots out.
Indeed, dots or socks. It seemed to be the dots or socks.
Yes.
Yeah. Can we just agree that fidget spinners?
2 dots. Go ahead.
Can we agree that fidget spinners have to die? They really do.
Oh my gosh. So I picked up a fidget spinner from one of the booths, and I spun it, and the weight thing flew out of it and hit somebody on the head.
Yeah.
That's how good quality it was.
Yeah, I did. I was in my office before, we were thinking about getting fidget spinners, and I did that. Exactly that happened in my office. I'm like, no, we're not getting fidget spinners. No.
They're really stupid. I don't know anybody. I mean, I don't know anybody that actually likes them.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember which vendor it was, but somebody took a box of looked like about 900 of them and stuck them in the bloggers table.
Yeah, that was Turbonomics.
There you go. Yeah, it was like 500. It was like 500 of them. It's like, really?
So the rubric proof. I'm at rubric. We had tons of giveaways, and fidget spinners by far was the number one requested giveaway.
That's what people ask for?
Yes, because they say all my kids are collecting fidget spinners.
Yeah, they're collecting.
But you guys had so much better stuff. I mean, why would they want the fidget spinners?
Because it's just to bring it home to your kids. We don't keep any of this crap, right, Stephen? We throw it away.
That's true.
It's kids. It's absolutely the kids. It's must be like the new Pogs. They must trade them and stuff. Hey, since we mentioned rubric, you guys spent a lot of money. You had a very nice basketball court. You had a new investor in Kevin Durant, and a nice concert, and one best of show. So let's move on. But congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Hey,
I had nothing to do with any of it, but thank you.
Ken, you did an awesome job.
That's right.
2017, 2016 to make this happen. Just
Let's move on to something a little more technical. The biggest news was the launch of, let me get it right, VMware Cloud on AWS.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to? So let me set it up, right? It's been pre-announced. The stock is up. It is an indicator to the market just looks at big signals, and the market's like, oh, wait a minute, you need VMware after all. AWS can't really do, there's the hard plumbing infrastructure stuff that VMware does and the customer base. And I heard on background from a lot of people inside VMware and out that both VMware and AWS are feeling a lot of pressure to make this work and make this work well. What'd y'all think? Give it a grade. Anybody jump in.
First, I think people need to understand what it is, because it seemed like VMware was trying really, really hard to actually make people understand what the thing was. And I sat and talked to Scott Lowe, and he blew my mind, because when he explained it, because everyone thinks it's the VMware stack on on the cloud, but it's not. It's cloud native architecture, and I think there was a bit of a struggle delivering that message. I don't know if you guys have that same feeling.
Well, it's kind of cloud native architecture, but it's also kind of just like VMware running on AWS.
Yeah,
I mean,
see?
I
And they'll say,
understand.
no, it's not. It's not really. It's not. It's really cool.
It's not, but it also kind of is. I mean, it's just like now, and I'm not jaded. It's just that it's a lot of these things fall in certain areas of like, oh, I can finally talk about this, but I'm kind of like bored about it now because now everyone's talking about it, and embargoes will ruin your life. Is really what I'm saying. That's all really I'm saying.
Double-edged sword.
So let me give you my understanding. So north facing looks like VMware. You buy 4 machines to start off with inside AWS. South facing, actually, a huge amount of software, a huge amount of code changes had to happen to make sure that you can actually spin up fully functional new machines that are integrated into the cluster in seconds. Like actually, a hell of a lot of work had to happen on that end. So great partnership. Now, is it going to be used? So here's a question. So I was on the Cube and we did a wrap up, and I made the prediction, just to be provocative, that within 2 years, VMware on AWS will be the largest VMware hoster in the market. And by that I mean people are going to use it for their excess capacity, and you're going to use it for their managed hosting. And what I didn't say was, but the attach rate of AWS services will be so low that they won't ever. They'll be embarrassed and they won't tell us what it is. That's my prediction. It's going to be used mostly for VMware hosting and not as much for AWS connectivity and services. Anybody?
I'd say mostly agreed. I mean, I could see some things if they start to advance into some other like real effective and essential capabilities, but it definitely it allows you to have a true DR site without having to deal with. I won't say bad things about vCloud Air, so I just won't say anything more at this point.
Don't speak ill of the departed, please. Don't speak ill of the dead. Well, it's not dead, but it's gone. OVF had a very big, nice, and they're very nice people, and they had a very big.
Yeah. So, John, when you say it's the largest, you mean in terms of revenues or in terms of customers?
Oh, I was on TV. Who knows, Ken? I was just.
I only bring that up because having come from Rackspace, I will tell you that Rackspace still has a very large VMware hosting business, but it's a lot of people with like 10 VMs.
Yeah.
They really just need the 2 hosts. And if you look at least the first iteration of VMware Cloud and AWS, it's a minimum 4-host cluster. So if you're a very small, medium business, that may be that's probably too high an entry point.
Mm-hmm.
So this maybe a little more smaller enterprise up to the larger enterprise.
What was the number? Is it 52,000 to start? I kept hearing people throw that number around. I'm not sure if that was the exact same platform part, but I want to make sure. Did anyone else hear that?
They put out a pricing page. I haven't had a chance to kind of go through it, but
Yeah.
I've heard that it's pricey.
One thing I wanted to mention and also get your guys' thoughts on too was the whole announcement around the Pivotal and the Kubernetes thing too, and that really.
Hold that for one. Put a pin in for 1 sec. Let's finish this.
Okay.
But I did want to ask anybody here from the partner side who asked about pricing or asked about that sort of thing, because I did hear kind of back channel stuff that VMware is being pretty cagey on how they're going to work with partners on this, and people were a little bit skeptical. Anybody?
I brought up how's pricing going to be handled from a partner standpoint with NSXT, which the answer around there is it's going to be treated the same way as it had always been, where it's not like they're ripping the business away and throwing into AWS, whereby the partner's being pushed out. So I'm theoretically optimistic that they're going to be doing the right thing there to engage the partner community.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's good. Is it actually available? I mean, they said it was available, but I'm not sure. We'll see what I don't know if you can buy capacity on it yet. I guess again, you got to pony up a $50,000 check. So
yeah. So the thing is, it's not. My understanding is it's not something where you can go on a page now and sign up for it. You actually have to go through your sales team. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like it's supposed to be cloud, but you're still getting a PO.
Yeah.
And I was hearing through some cycles of a potential availability of the ability to trial accounts over the next couple months with some other folks. Mm-hmm. So it might not be fully baked immediate right now.
Mm-hmm.
So wait, Ken, I had a quick question for Ken. Ken, are you saying that to get a cloud, you have to submit a bill of materials?
For this cloud, I guess.
Well, Yeah,
I think they're trying to control this thing. I think there are some interesting technologies in there, mainly beneath the VMware stack. To be a lot of the stuff with the bare metal provisioning. I mean, anyone who works in a data center or service provider knows bare metal provisioning. It's a pain and pretty much an unsolved problem. So if it does what they've claimed that it can do right now, where it can automatically spin up a machine and have it ready in a very short amount of time, I think that's really interesting tech for this. And to be honest, if it's something AWS can leverage, it's probably really interesting tech they'll figure out how to use for other services.
Bare metal provisioning's easy with Ghost. I'm not sure what the problem is.
Right.
Yeah. You go run your AWS competitor with Ghost and just give it a try. Hey, so I wanted to move on to Pivotal Container Services, PKS, or I think officially this version is VMware Pivotal Container Services, which may or may not be the same thing with NSX. So, hey, maybe Ken, can you get us up to speed on that?
Yeah, so I actually talked with someone from product management, and the point I raised to her was I know some of the pieces that are part of PKS, and I don't think VMware did a very good job during the conference explaining the details of what it actually comprises.
They had Sam Ramsey up on stage shaking hands. That's what I saw.
Yeah, there's a lot of foundation stuff. So that's fun, but so kind of high level views. Basically, you take Kubernetes and you take Bosch, which is it's kind of the operation management piece of Cloud Foundry. And they basically pulled that out and said we can use it not just for Cloud Foundry, but we'll use it for Kubernetes. And they created an open source project called Kubernetes on Bosch or with Bosch. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially what PKS is a productizing of that. But the confusion has been some people think that means you need Cloud Foundry, which it doesn't. Some people think that it means it has to be on vSphere, which isn't the case either. So.
Yeah, in fact, I got into two fights about this. Not fights, but I tweeted something about Pivotal and Cloud Foundry snarkily during the keynote, and Kit Colbert educated me. And then I got into a discussion with Chris Wolf about the Pivotal VMware Dell Technologies Alliance anyway. And I got we had some words. So I think I understand better now. What I'm seeing is, well, I mean, there's two problems. One is the strategy, right? The go-to-market strategy. And I interviewed some Red Hat people, and I definitely think it's shaping up to be like the Dell technology stack versus the Red Hat stack, and they're different, right? OpenShift is different. OpenShift has taken Kubernetes and built its own ecosystem around it, some of which are pieces, parts from other places, some of which they've built. And VMware Pivotal is doing the same thing, right? I think. So that's what it's looking like to me. I did want to point out that the one cool thing about PKS is it's completely upstream compatible. It's going to be release synced with regular Kubernetes with the help of Google and stuff. And so it is not going to be, there's no extra stuff, there's no extra calls, there's no different APIs. It should be completely, even deployment-wise, compatible with the Google container service, or sorry, at least with Kubernetes, regular Kubernetes. So they're trying super hard to make it clean and nice and open, even though it's using Bosch on the bottom, which is kind of complicated and comes from Pivotal and maybe does not have the adoption footprint of some other configuration technologies and Kubernetes or associated technologies. Go.
I was just going to, it's a trivial point, but I just want to point out that calling it PKS kind of is just another grammar error, and it's right up there with on-premise. So I didn't get the PKS. Yes, I do. I knew the K was for Kubernetes, but why wasn't it PCS? Is it always only going to be Kubernetes?
Definitely with Google's help. I don't know. It's definitely saying that we're aligned with Google and you're not, which I think is kind of a dig at Red Hat. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, so actually it's interesting. Red Hat is actually fairly aligned with Google as well. Okay. I mean, Google is not choosing sides here at all.
Okay. Yeah.
Google will partner with anyone who's willing to do anything with Kubernetes, because ultimately they think that'll help them get traction with their public cloud against AWS and Azure. Mm-hmm. So they're not, this is not an exclusive deal by any means. I think it's one of the interesting things though is this is probably the first time in years where basically the Pivotal guys for the company have sort of started chasing Red Hat a little bit. Because in the past, it's always been Red Hat, why don't you guys give up on OpenShift and just join the Cloud Foundry Foundation? And now I think there's a bit of a mission that Kubernetes is getting enough traction where Red Hat's trying to break into certain places, and they need a response to that.
And Ken, on that point, I had a question for you. I think you're uniquely, positioned to answer. Is the messaging between these different services kind of getting really muddy? Because that's the feeling that I got. So I mean, like people are saying, well, how is this different than Kubernetes as a service on Platform 9? Or how is this different than what other people are doing? It seems like there might be some Kubernetes washing, or maybe just some confusion with the value of the different services.
Well, I'll let other people jump in. I'll keep it real short. Like I said, I think the two things I noticed that I would consider negative is that, again, I don't think they did a great job of teasing apart what exactly PKS is for VMware audience. So I think that's going to be a lot of confusion there. And second, I think in the VMware community, there's a lot of education that needs to be needed about containers, period, yeah. Let alone what this whole stack is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Well, as a Google Cloud insider, and I know that Google's mission and vision is to get more and more people to adopt things within the Google stacks. And if you look at the grand scheme of things, you go to DockerCon, you go to container-based conferences, you'll see a lot of the same people. And that's because the expansion of people adopting containers, Kubernetes, and what have you, is very popularized within those who use it. And those who don't use it is because they don't know about it, know who it is, what it's about. I regularly have the conversation, what is containers? It's like, okay, well, let me get my container fire pictures out so I can show you what it actually looks like. But no, the reality on it is more, this is just one more way to open the door to adoption that prior to this point has been, I'd say, minimal. I mean, we look at the talks around NSX. We look at the talks around vSAN, right? They're like, wow, we're doubling our number of vSAN users. That's cool. We've gone from like 2,000 to 4,000. Awesome. You've got like 1 million vSphere deployments, right? You're at 0.1%. You've got nothing but growth at that point. And the same kind of type of approach I'm seeing with the container stuff. It's the sky is the limit. You just, as you create more vehicles for people to adopt it, you might actually gain, greater levels of adoption, which is absolutely awesome because it gives it, just more ways for people to actually start to use these products, in a good next generational way.
Yeah. A word on Kubernetes for Yadin's question. Kubernetes natively is fairly sharp-edged, right? And so people have to build infrastructure around it to make it usable. And so that's you see like at KubeCon, there's many different approaches to it. Do I attach storage to it? Is it networking? Is it management? Like, what's my special sauce? OpenShift, one of the main, probably the biggest Kubernetes commercial platform for consumption. And now they're hoping this thing is the next one. PKS is the next one. But Platform 9, for instance, managed Kubernetes. It is very analogous to GKS. It is deployable on your own prem or somewhere else, but definitely only as a managed service. PKS a little more flexible, right? You could run it, or they can run it, or stuff like that. I did want to add, so containers. I had some back channel stuff where somebody said, "Hey, the SEs in the VMware ecosystem are starting to hear more. Like the infrastructure guys and gals are starting to come to them and say, I'm seeing containers. I'm seeing Kubernetes. The developers are coming to me. What do I do?" And that's great because I've been a container proponent, but I've been a skeptic on adoption in this space. And so they're seeing more of it. That's kind of anecdotal, right? That they're starting to have to answer those kind of questions. They don't know what to say, but they're having to answer those kind of questions. But there were no DevOps, there were no developers, if you were at VMworld trying to learn about containers, you should have driven down the strip because you were in the wrong place.
Well, I want to tell you one thing where that actually brings up, which was the most exciting thing that I saw out of the NSXT 2.0, but whatever's announcement, was the native integrated micro-segmentation of in-object containers, which was amazing. The ability to, I've got Kubernetes, because today, as it stood, in a standard NSX VMworld or NSX, T type of world, we're staring at, hey, you can protect the Kubernetes block itself, but everything inside is going to have to be dealt with in whatever way it is. Now with NSXT 2.0, I can then select any portion within, hey, this container object inside of Kubernetes, I can protect you separately and isolate out your content, and thus to, provide a different level of secure boundaries that gives me microsegmentation within a microsegmentation container, structured model, which from my standpoint is pretty exciting.
Absolutely, it's necessary. Hey, Christopher, can you let's talk about NSX? Now that's NSXT, right? That's not. There's different flavors. You want to talk about the NSX Leadership Summit and kind of your state of the NSX market? So it sounds like you were talking to them about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And the NS that was one of the many announcements and such that they talk about the NSX Leader Summit. We had a great audience of presenters who are there to talk to us about what's available, because the room was filled with a lot of the NSXV experts and the NSX champions and others who exist within that entire space. But they're getting it. They're finally getting it more. They're going deeper in our ability to support the networking space, which is actually really good. There's some of the more further exciting things, right? Because the clear lines of NSXV versus NSXT is the NSXV engineers, the people who do the live fire trainings and stuff like that, they don't want to talk about T because they don't know about T. Truly, it's a separate line of business. And it's good to not confuse the people, because BGP capabilities in V, which are very minimal, are more expanded upon in T. And it's not seen as a way to, what do I do? Well, do I pick V or do I pick T? A further exciting part that came out of that was you pay for the licensing and you figure out which part you want to use. You want to use V? Cool. You use 10 sockets of V. You've got 20 sockets total. You can have 10 sockets for T. Really allows you, whichever path you want to go. And the side part is the KMS support does, hey, this thing's already AWS ready at that point. Go ahead.
T versus V, the V version works with the vSphere and the vSphere stack, and the T version is more independent of that. Is that
multi-cloud? So it's vSphere and KMS. It was just the easy way of looking at it.
Hey, so that's good. So you're relatively positive on the place where NSX is, Christopher? Are your clients?
As someone who's been working with it and dealt with it for pre-Nicira days and a billion years, I'm more excited about NSX and with also the NSXT related stuff now than I have been ever in the past. And I'm not sure what that says of me and the sadness of my excitement around microsegment enabled capable technologies and such. But still, I'm more excited that they're finally starting to understand their own vision and pitch, because I've had to explain to them their own product time and time again. So we're in a far better place. They're starting to get it.
Anybody? I just put it on chat. Anybody want to talk about App Defense or the cloud services? I think maybe that was not that went past, or you want to jump in on the day 2 keynote, which I thought was a little bit hard to pay attention to the whole thing. App Defense seems very cool, and they've got 7 or 8 what they're calling cloud services, at least one of which was an acquisition, Wavefront, which seems to be like a Datadog competitor or something. But anyway, these are services, man. These are SaaS services. These are not built on VMware. These are SaaS. Like they could start swallowing SaaS startups now, right? With this kind of model. Very new for VMware, right? This is a very different model. Actual SaaS services, not a cloud. Any thoughts on either cloud services or App Defense? Anybody?
One quick. I just want to ask a question too, because it seems like they're moving in a couple different directions that might feel like are kind of cannibalizing some of their own, sort of architecture environments, to where they're going to say, okay, well, you can start architecting stuff in cloud native containers, or you can start consuming stuff as SaaS. Is this something that they're kind of doing because they feel like they need to kind of move away from the legacy on-premises, VMware stack or just VMware stack within the cloud, and actually start to move into that SaaS model? Or do you think it's just something that they feel like they're just diversifying their portfolio?
I can go on that one. VMware in general, right? VMware, and this was a conversation we had in Opening Acts the first day, right? And the very first question that I led on a panel, which is what the heck does VMware do anyway, right? And that's what they tried to show on day 2. VMware, it isn't a platform. It isn't a single set of APIs, but VMware is this infrastructure layer that is going to manage all the really hard plumbing problems, no matter where you want to go, whether it's desktops or storage or networking to the cloud, right? And so I think at this point, VMware is fairly agnostic as to delivery and even technology, but they want to be that go-to layer, is my impression. And so those SaaS things are, and look, they're going to be, in terms of revenue, they're probably going to be nothing. So if they don't work out, they'll drop them. I mean, Wavefront, look at the vRealize story. They bought a lot of stuff. They built a lot of stuff. They've spent years knitting it together. I mean, it works. It's still kind of complicated, but, and now it's a real business. It's a big business. So I think that's the model. That's natural, right? Big companies buy little companies where the innovation happens, integrate them, and then popularize them. So that's just part of the. I think they now have some that are SaaS.
I think it just seems like experimentation, which is not a bad thing, like you said. But it feels like it should be a little bit more core to the strategy for getting people to migrate from this, build your own, manage your own, to really consume everything as a service, and then so that the VMware evolves that organically, because that's the way the digital transformation trends that are going on within enterprises right now.
Yeah, well, it's experimentation that really drives the organic growth anyway, because there have been a lot of interesting experiments throughout the years. And App Defense definitely falls within that experimental range. We fought back and forth when we were dealing with the App Defense guy in the NSX Leaders Summit. And one of the takeaways from it was like, well, how are you handling the ingestion as to what is valid and what's not valid? And it's like, oh, well, we partner with Carbon Black for that, which was like, oh, okay, perfect. You've answered this entire thing, / we might as well just use Carbon Black anyway. So they definitely need to bake that part in a little bit more. But let's just say I feel a lot more comfortable with the product now, knowing that they didn't start to suddenly become a security company, maintaining a massive repository that all of our really good security companies have a hard time trying to maintain as it is.
Yeah, Christopher, it was really unclear to me what the API story is there. They listed their partners, and I saw Carbon Black, who, again, they scan, I don't know if they scan code or signatures or what, but they're at all the container and developer shows, and they have a couple competitors. But like Puppet is baked in, Puppet Enterprise. So does that mean financeable or not? That seems weird. I don't know.
That part is weird. It's like, oh great, now I need to bake in 5 or 6 different product sets just so I can use this one thing. Whereas I'm doing a really good job of either using some of those product sets or not using those product sets in order to take advantage of whatever we need to do. So it's trying really hard for that part, and it definitely I kind of see that that's more of an experiment that we'll kind of see if it turns into a 2 or 3.0.
Yeah. Hey, my general strategy at VMworld for years has just been go to the keynotes and then talk to people, and I'll get kind of the sense of what's going on. This year that failed me. The keynotes did not inform me about what the heck was going on, and I did not get the signals of what was important and what was not. I mean, other than
I'll jump in on that one too, John. That totally true. The keynote was interesting, but not all that useful.
Yeah. Anybody else on the keynotes?
One thing I noticed this year was there were a lot more high-level announcements. In the past, they've done a little more demo of things. They didn't do that as much, I don't think, because they're trying to craft this high-level story for some of the services. I did talk to a few people after the keynotes, kind of users and customers, and kind of a consistent feedback I got was it just seemed like there's so many more things now that they have to learn. They're feeling overwhelmed because all of a sudden it's the traditional stack, and now all of a sudden now they have to learn a little AWS, and they got to learn containers and Docker, and they got to learn what these SaaS services do. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges that VMware has, is how do you educate this base that you have, because they're the ones who are going to kind of drive the adoption.
Yeah, welcome to 2017. That's the world. It's going to go better than Spring when they bought Spring, and then we had the keynote and half the people walked out when they started talking about Spring. So they're not trying to turn people into developers. But the world is a big place.
Right.
I think we must have all loved the reference to Elastic Sky, and it was a little concerning, and it seemed as though they were trying to turn the keynote into an infomercial or an infotainment that in some levels it failed for me. I mean, I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I loved that little kind of play with InfoSky Pizza, or Elastic Sky Pizza," but to me, it was like they were trying too hard to be cute, and it kind of lost to me the kind of what were they really trying to do here? Were they trying to entertain, or were they actually trying to communicate? I know they're trying to do both, but I think they failed to a big degree.
Yeah, they'll never be Contoso. I mean, let's just be honest. You know, they're not a Tailspin Toys and all the other mythical Microsoft companies. You know, that's just they baked that into our heads for years. They should just stick with, let's find real customer references and go with that, as opposed to mythical customer references.
Yeah, or some demos. I agree. Elastic Sky, for people that don't know, was the original code name for ESX, and so that's a history. The narrative. The problem was they for me it was a narrative, and sometimes it wasn't that interesting. So you kind of glaze over a lot of different portals, a lot of different they did like do PowerPoint demos. Oh, here's a screen, and like another portal. Somebody called it portal sprawl. But if you lost track of the narrative, sometimes like they flashed by some of the products so fast that I missed them, and then they ended up with IoT, which I liked better than I thought I was going to.
Wait, John.
Yeah,
John, are you saying that wasn't a live demo?
It's unclear to me, but yeah, may not have been. Somebody was telling me the IoT stuff actually is going well, right? It's being baked into a lot of partners are going for it, and it's going to be baked into the IOTA piece is going to be baked into a lot of things. So again, something new I'm not super familiar with that I got to learn about. But again, we're not tucking servers in your rack anymore, man. There's lots more stuff going on. Okay, show in general. Well, the keynote's trying to serve many masters, right? Investors, business decision makers, and the techies. Most of us here fall on the techie side, so we'd like some more techie. Maybe they need some. I mean, they have like second-tier keynotes that I didn't go to. Maybe we all need to just start going to the second-tier keynotes, where maybe they should start having like explicit technical keynotes that we can go to and be happy.
Well, that's what the sessions are for. But it's obvious that Steve Herrod's gone, right? It's very obvious Steve's gone. But Pat did an amazing job. At least I feel Pat did a great job of actually carrying forth the business. I mean, it's 5 years he's been in this role, and he's definitely shifted and changed the course of the business, and I feel like in some very positive ways. And I'm glad we've got Pat on board.
Do you guys realize Pat was very ill? I don't know if you guys knew that.
I knew that. Yeah.
Monday, he went to the hospital, or at least went back to. I think he went to the hospital in his ER. I mean, he was sick, so he had some.
Oh wow.
Thing. I mean, maybe
I saw him Wednesday and talked to him actually for about 5 minutes, and would have never known. I mean, he looked like he was good, so that's amazing.
I'm not sure he went to the hospital, but he was very sick.
He did not join us at the VExpert thing and apologized dearly for not being able to be there. So no, it's yes, we were tracking it.
Let's talk about VExperts in the community and in the show and food and whatever. I did have one VExpert who I like complain that Michael Dell didn't show up at that VExpert thing either, which I thought was a little presumptuous. But anything else on the? Let's move over to the show. I mean, or any last product stuff. Workspace ONE, Cloud Foundation, stuff like that.
The year of VDI. No, I feel like I'm hoping eventually the year of VDI.
HPE is going to sell it. Calvin, you're gonna HPE Workspace ONE, big announcement, and we'll move on. I mean, it's very important to people that work in that space. Let's not denigrate anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So the one thing, just really going to dive into the storage piece, and feel free to shut this down really quick. vVols was such a big thing for so many years. And now the sense that I'm getting from VMware, it's like, we're done with this. Not done in the sense that it's all done and we're claiming victory, but it's like, we're done making any kind of a big deal about it. And now it's up to you storage partners to go market it, because I saw, 2 years ago, there were probably like 20 sessions on vVols, and this year there was one VMware one, and there was one from HPE, and that was it.
Calvin, is that because it's a solved problem?
No, because there's actually still pretty significant issues. The big one that we hear a lot, and somebody actually came and asked the first question during our session, is it doesn't work with SRM. And somebody actually came up to in our session, first question, and very agitated, very pissed off, and said, I told Michael Dell last year that he needs to get SRM working with vVols, and here we are a year later, and it still doesn't work. And it's like, okay, go piss on Michael Dell again then, what do you want me to tell you?
SRM always the redheaded stepchild of VMware. Never always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah, really. You just get Zerto and just screw SRM at that point because, I mean, seriously, SRM has always been a pain in the ass for anyone who ever has to use it. It's great, and you make the promises. Go ahead, use SRM. It's then the people are using it. It's like, what are you telling these people?
Mm-hmm. I did hear from different partners. We were talking earlier about platform and services, and Yadin, who works for a company that has a SaaS service that conceivably is related to things like SRM. Not in this. I'm not talking about Druva, Yadin, but I did talk to a couple different partners that VMware's making some aggressive. Not aggressive, but they're prickly. They're a platform. They're not Microsoft, right? They don't have that kind of power of Microsoft in the '90s, but they're picking places where they're going to go. And if you're a little company, if they don't buy you, they're going to compete with you. I don't know. Hey, Stephen, okay, you got nothing on vVols. I got nothing on vVols, Calvin. It's it wasn't a storage show, that's for sure, which was kind of interesting, right? Because 5 or 8 years ago, you might have thought it was. Yeah. Cool. How was the show in general? I got my 10,000 steps in. I did not eat the food except for one day. I stayed away from breakfast because it's usually terrible. There was swag everywhere in the community space. I got some T-shirts. I did not do the hackathon, but I got the hackathon T-shirt. There's more there to say on open source, but let's not go there now.
John, you could walk around the show floor and they're going to give you the Mini Cooper they're giving away because of who you are. The rest of us, we can't get that swag stuff without doing it. So,
dude, people do not know me. Like, a 0.1% of people at VMware know me, and that's the only place I'm famous. So
they don't know me either. But also, I'm somewhat almost persistent, or maybe just annoying, and they end up giving me stuff.
Yeah. I don't know, the show infrastructure, the show, the amenities, the alumni gift. So who was talking about?
I don't know if you saw me complaining, and I don't know if the VMware folks saw me complaining, but when I first got my badge, there was no alumni A on it, and I went and asked, and I said, there's no way. This is like my 8th or 9th VMworld in a row. And she went and pulled me up, and it said, it's because you've only paid like 3 times in the last 5 years. So now the alumni apparently, if I understood correctly, you have to pay 5 times in a row with a paid ticket or a paid pass to be considered an alumni.
Yeah. No, the alumni does not really mean this is your second year. The alumni is like you paid us a bunch of money. I don't know, Roger. What? Yeah.
It didn't used to be like that because I was an alumni every year until I think this year. Maybe I wasn't last year and I didn't notice.
You have budget, man. Allocate.
Pay to play.
Yeah, you know what, John? For me, I said it's really not a big deal. I'm bitching about it, but at the end of the day, I think I've gone into the alumni lounge once in the 8 VMworlds I've gone to.
So I kind of.
Roger, introduce yourself.
Yeah, this is Roger Lund. I kind of get to the point now that I'm starting to wonder what the value is of the alumni, just because. Last year, I think there was a USB splitter as the gift, and this year it was a laptop camera cover. And if I can go to $5 below store and get the same item,
dude, you're hoping a fidget spinner.
That's like a buck. That's like $3.79. That's not even $5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And from China, it's in bulk, it's 25 cents.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roger, what do you think of the show in general?
I thought the show was good. I thought the swag was interesting. I walked around the outskirts of the show, and I think I ended up with 1 T-shirt. I ended up with like 48 pens, 3 fidget spinners, a Frisbee, a couple balls. Where I remember years ago, you used to get, lots of T-shirts. I remember one time I walked out with like 40 T-shirts. That definitely wasn't the case this year, at least for me.
Well, I mean, most marketers can screw up a T-shirt faster than anything, right? The T-shirts I keep are the ones on really good stock that don't pill up and stuff, and the ones that are not filled with logos and that wouldn't be embarrassed to be caught at the grocery store or whatever. But
and for me, traditionally I like to give those away for the V-Mugs that I support.
Gotcha.
In this case, I can bring pens, but I don't think anybody cares.
Well, I'm particular to the shirts that I wear because I'm hypersensitive to fabric type things and such. So I visit specific booths for their shirts versus the ones where they're trying to sell me ones made of hemp fiber with like twigs sticking out. So I hit up Zito for their their special shirts, which I wore to the show from past years. I stop at Pluralsight for their V-Nerd shirts, and then beyond that, unless someone drags me out of the way, especially, I expect everyone's shirts to be crappy, and rarely am I disappointed by that.
Yeah.
I did think
Splunks are good. They always say that they're a t-shirt company that happens to make software.
I did think that the other thing that was interesting is some of the vendors that did give away things like the VExpert items were pretty specific about the sign-up process or the time that you had to be there to pick it up. Where great, but I might have 15 minutes between meetings to grab something. I don't have an hour and 15 minutes to wait in a line to grab an item.
I do like that a lot of the VExpert gift-ish type of things where, are you going to be there at the show or should we ship it directly to you? So like the VMTN community had something and I went over to them like, hey, you got that thing? And they pull up their list and says, oh, you had it to ship to you. I'm like, oh, cool. I have less things to carry back at this point.
Right. Part of it's budget, right? I work with vendors and part of it's budget, right? VExperts are very scary because there's 1,500 of them. So you're not sure how many are going to be there. And if you're a small company, you're a little bit afraid that you just committed to buying 1,500 times $30, $50 or whatever because they want to make them nice. So there's a little bit of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
Last words? Anything else? Everybody is
a couple things.
Holiday weekend.
Yeah, looking for the holiday weekend. One thing though, I'll go on my little rant about there was no little food kiosks in VMTM or the VM Village, which last year was amazing. So props to VMware. Last year, awesome. The little cafe, kiosk for food, fantastic. This year I was like, okay, I'll get my food there, and then I'm stuck, podcasting at the podcast booths. Plug to Eric over there. Thank you for the podcast booths this year too. And then I have to run all the way down the hallway, grab food or shove a couple things in my mouth and run all the way back. So next year would be great if you could bring that back. Yeah, it was so fantastic.
I seem to remember last year that they had an espresso booth at some point.
Yeah.
Veeam had one.
Yeah, Veeam did have one on the show floor, but this was more in the community area.
That's
last
true.
Year. Yeah,
it was nice.
And also, no trash cans. That's my pet peeve. There's no trash cans in the blogger booth ever.
Yes.
Oh my God, I was hunting around for trash cans. I want one takeaway after our greatly experienced pains over the course of the partner exchange part of PEX, where they're like, oh, well, we don't have coffee out. And we're talking to some people like, oh, well, for cost. I'd say, hey, if HP had coffee available, in the times where they're not having coffee sponsored by HP within the partner community, A, you get some HP swag out of that. B, you actually get people having coffee during 8-hour boot camps. So just like if they're saying it's too expensive to have coffee, we're going to be bringing Keurigs, or we'll get someone to sponsor it for you if they can't figure out how logistics are working or how to, keep a couple of dollars worth of coffee stuck on the floor.
I've got one more thing. I had a couple customers come up to me because I'm a VMUG leader that said that the TAM day was terrible this year. They condensed it into like a 6-hour session, or where there just wasn't the content that there normally is. So I feel that that was a miss there, where they had a lot more time in the past.
Bad why? Not technical enough? Not enough time? What was the deal?
Not enough time, and I think my understanding is it was like they took all of the different topics and just assigned tables for people to sit at, versus having like a full day with sessions. It was just more like a community-based roundtable.
Yeah, I can see that. I see what they're trying to do, and I can see how if you wanted the full thing, that could be hard. Hey, let's see. Yadin, you had something?
Yeah, one last thing, too, is they're teasing out. I heard a couple little whispers that it's going to be coming back to San Francisco, which I'm excited about, but not everyone is excited about. Can San Francisco even handle the show anymore? Has it gotten too big?
Dude, it can handle Dreamforce, and Dreamforce has like 38,000 or 178,000 people that and it can handle Oracle OpenWorld, which is bigger. You can cover more of the city.
Yeah, and VMware
once the construction on the Moscone is done, it'll be able to handle a lot more too. Right now, Moscone's a smoking floor in the hole in the ground.
Yeah, and VMware hasn't grown enough. if they could handle it a few years ago, they can handle it next year. It's not a problem.
I think the biggest issue people have with San Francisco is the cost of a hotel room.
Yes.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
we can get a hotel room for 5 nights in Vegas for what it costs for 1 night in San Francisco.
If you're staying at the Excalibur, and I, God bless people who do.
I stayed at Excalibur. It was $49 a night in the refurbished tower. It was great.
We got New York for like 50 or 60. It was great.
By the time I registered, the Luxor was the closest that I could get at a decent price, a little bit more than the Excalibur. So we were like, it was the Four Seasons or the Luxor, and Kat voted on the Four Seasons, and we compromised on the Luxor. But I said, I'll upgrade us. There was no Four Seasons. Anyway,
I have 2 quick things. I thought I really liked the conference. I too, I'm hoping they go back to San Francisco, because I'm not a big fan of Vegas, and I go there enough already. That being said, the 2 things I would like VMware to do is, one is better snack options. Seems like there was so much sugar everywhere. It's like every snack
that's true.
Cupcakes or pastries, and every beverage was a soda. That's one thing.
More easily water.
Yeah, and second sorry, the second was. Sorry, go ahead, Roger.
I'm going to disagree with you. So I'm type 1 diabetic, right? And so trying to eat the food that they have can be a challenge.
Yeah. And the second thing is I wish they would take all their breakout sessions, or at least kind of the big ones, and put them up online. I talked to Brian Graff, who is a technical marketing engineer for VMware Cloud and AWS, which is obviously a big deal right now for them. And he said there weren't cameras in any of his sessions. So they clearly weren't planning to video it and put it up online. So
you know what they do, Ken? They don't video them. They do the audio, and they get the slides, and they will do audio and slides often.
Yeah.
There's a chance. Maybe that's weird, because I thought they got everything. They captured everything. I know they're dupes, but if Brian said his weren't, then they probably weren't.
Yeah, I think he did mention a couple of them that had audio, but definitely there were no video cameras. So
I'd also say this, just knowing from a vendor side, every vendor is under pressure for costs, and I see it in our event with Discover that they're cutting corners everywhere they can and taking cost out, because there's tons of pressure with costs right now for every vendor.
Yep. There's a chance actually the videos are going to show up on YouTube for some technical reasons. I heard. We'll see where they show up. I'm glad they post them these days, right? Because a lot of companies kind of hold them back. Hey, final grade. I'm gonna we lost a couple people. I'm just gonna go in the order I have here. I'll call on you and give me a final grade. And I'll go last. Stephen Foskett, final grade for the show.
Yeah, I'd give it a B overall. It was fine, not amazing, but certainly not bad. And I do want to give a shout out to some of the cool new ideas. The trail map, that was neat. I like that. Nice job, Yadin.
Oh, thank you, Stephen.
Very nice. Kudos. Yeah, trail map gets an A. Absolutely. Go to Yadin. I'll let you plug that when we get to you. So we'll Great. Thanks, Stephen. Christopher, overall grade.
Overall grade. I go with B minus, C plus, just like Stephen saying there. It was a great show. It was one of the more exhausting shows that I've had at VMworld. So good show all around. It wasn't nearly as deep and technical as it should have been. They definitely have a lot of new stuff that they're talking about, that they're covering. It used to be where the show was all about the vendors, and it's like, oh, we're allowing you customers to come and look at it. And then it kind of goes into a way of, I'm not even sure where in some ways it's kind of more about VMware than it is about the people there. Thus, they're not feeding the people there. It's like we're cutting costs in all these ways, and I'm not sure. Maybe they'll change when it goes back to San Francisco again, because then you only have to charge a little bit of mileage cost to drive people from their homes. But it's I don't know. They're trying to cram a lot into a small package, and it's just not
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, C plus, B minus.
All right. They are trying to send engineers and stuff. I did talk to some engineers that had sessions, so they're trying to do that even in Vegas. Calvin Zito.
So I'm going to say I'm going to give it an A minus, and I'm going to put it in the context why for me that's a grade. I come really mainly for the community. I mean, I certainly listen to the keynotes. I go to a couple sessions, but for me, it's more about community. So, the event behind me is kind of background noise to hang out with the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the parties, man.
Those parties are hard work. Don't Calvin, you work hard. Those parties are really hard. They're hard work. I'm amazed. Thank you guys for all joining me here. It's we're all tired.
Hey, my party went great, and the logistics on that was absolute hard work. So I totally hear that.
Yep. Ken.
Yeah, I would, similar to Calvin, I would give it a B+, and almost all the positive about it, it's related to the community and the fact that you get to meet people that you've only talked on Twitter, and now you get to see them in person and some good conversations. That's personally, obviously, from a rubric standpoint, we would probably call it an A+.
Roger, what do you grade the show on?
I'll give it a B-. I think that the community aspects were great as always. I think if it was in San Francisco versus Vegas, I'd give it a little higher score just because, some of the events you have to make choices of where you go based on location so much. So it just makes it really hard to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, no, Vegas drops you a letter grade in that book, but it is what it is. Hey, Yadin, I think you're the last person here that's still standing.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna give it a movie reference grade. I'm gonna give it a Captain America: Civil War, because there was a whole lot going on. There was a whole bunch of different characters that were coming out, and you just don't know how they fit in and who's on what side and why. They don't even know why they're fighting each other. Sometimes, but all really, really great, all really fantastic. So a lot of really great stuff coming out, but I think people just need to figure out exactly how it fits in and how they're gonna integrate with it. And just as you gave me an opportunity, John, I'm definitely gonna go a shameless plug for the V Trail Map, which is the community guide for getting just everyone who's not already connected to the community connected. And we got to hand out several hundred of them, which I was really, really excited about. Just everyday users who are just trying to figure out, solve problems, level up, get better at what they do, and I'm hoping that we help some people.
A really great community guide. Where do you go to get it?
You can go to email levelup@druva.com, or you can go to druva.com/levelup. Find more.
Awesome. I give the show, from VMware's point of view, I give it an A- because it did what they needed to do. The stock price is up. People kind of get the AWS thing. The ecosystem is there. AirWatch was there, and they integrated them semi-successfully into the show. The product portfolio. It's very clear this year that VMware is not a one-product company. And last year, it was still a question, maybe the last 2 years. So I think next year is in Vegas. I'm pretty sure. I didn't hear dates, but I heard it was a 3-year commitment. So I'm thinking it's VMware. But I have not seen it in writing or a date. I did also hear that next year, VMware, the U.S. and the European shows will be farther apart again. It was a timing issue this year. So, anybody going to AWS reInvent?
I am.
Ken is. Anybody else?
I might get an email just like last time saying, "Hey, you're registered," and then I'm going.
Anybody else? I might go if I can piggyback on something else. That's the
Is that the week after Thanksgiving? I think it's actually conflicts with Discover in Madrid this year, so I will probably never be at reInvent.
Well, reInvent changes every year. It's all about availability of venue because every year it's big. So.
It conflicted with Discover last year too because we tried to bring some bloggers and they were going to reInvent. So I think it's the same week. It's the week after Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Yeah,
November 22nd to December 1st.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
We shouldn't end on reInvent because this wasn't about reInvent.
Right.
Curious.
I will say from what I can tell, there is going to be a lot of talk about VMware Cloud and AWS at reInvent.
Good.
Actually, you know what? There was actually another thing that we can talk about that we should talk about, and that's FutureNet happened at the same time from VMware at VMworld.
Yeah. You have something to say?
Yeah, so I was part of that. Tom and I were invited to go to FutureNet, and that was totally different. It's like a conference about the future of networking at VMworld from the VMware folks, and they did a really brilliant job of pulling it off. There was lots of fantastic, kind of academic, but also lots of open source and lots of, panel discussions and so on. So if folks listening to this are interested in networking, look out for FutureNet next year, because that's it's like another side of the coin. And it was fun for us to be able to attend both VMworld and FutureNet.
I would have loved to attend FutureNet had I known that FutureNet was a thing, and before I changed up all my flights and moved out, because I was standing on the VFTN booth and one of the FutureNet guys handed me his badge. I was like, I'd love to go, but I'm already bailing out of here. I'm already gone out of here at this point.
Yeah.
But,
so my question is why a separate conference versus just doing a different track?
Yeah, I got an answer for that. Although this is me reading their minds. So second year for FutureNet, high level conference at the Four Seasons. It's trying to be like a thought leadership conference that like CIOs and like leaders of the networking industry would go to, and whereas they're like not that interested in VMworld and it's too big, and they want to be there to kind of, since everyone's there, they're there to make deals. So this was kind of taking a set of people, and it is a little exclusive in both a good and bad way, right? And so they were trying to get that kind of higher level conversation that felt, since people are already in town, they piggybacked instead of like flying them to a really nice conference center in Vail or something. I don't know, Stephen. That's my take on it.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. It's just, I just wanted to call it out because it is there. It's something that's happening and that people could go to, and it's a valuable thing. But yeah, a lot of people go to FutureNet and not VMworld.
Yeah, invite only. It was very exclusive. Anyway, good point. I think again, future's looking bright for VMware. And hey, thanks for taking time on your Friday mornings. Now you can go back and take a nap and wash your clothes and catch up on your email. So thanks everybody. Thanks. This has been a Tech Reckoning Friday VMworld recap. And I'll over at techreckoning.com. I'll put all your Twitter doohickeys. All right. Thanks all.
Thanks, John.
recorded live.
Bye, guys.